Hey folks, my name's Gareth Brown. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Clir Renewables in British Columbia. We have a mission here at Clir to minimize humankind's impact on the climate, and the way we're doing that is by turning renewable energy data into action. Now, as I stroll through the woods here in Whistler, breathing in the smoke-filled air from forest fires across Western North America fueled by climate change, that mission has never felt more important. Now, what I want to do today is talk about one of the great opportunities that we have here in the renewables industry. And that's making sure that we're getting as much diversity of expertise and talent brought into our industry. Now, when we set up the company here at Clir in 2017, our founding team had decades of experience in the renewables industry. And we were really aware that the leadership teams, the speakers at conferences, the technical teams, the lawyers, the financing was not taking advantage of broader range of talent that it could to bring different opinions and different approaches and drive improvements in our industry. Secondly, we were being exposed to the headlines of what was going on with Silicon Valley with tech, that where companies had driven a real monoculture, that they were suffering in their products, but suffering in their ability to hire in diverse talent going forward. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't repeat the mistakes in that industry as we grew Clir going forward. So we made inclusion and diversity a core value here at Clir Renewables. Now, how we handle that is by measuring and improving as much as we can all the time. So from a diversity perspective, we understand our gender split across the company, we understand our visible minority split, and we're really proud of what that has achieved for us in our practices and processes as we go forward. Now, we're not perfect, but we feel like today that we've done a pretty good job of making sure that we have a good split, but we still have lots to improve on as well. One of those areas that we really need to improve on was on the inclusion side, was really made apparent to me this weekend. Now, I was invited up to Whistler to hear a talk by Kevin Lamoureux from the University of Winnipeg. Now, Kevin walked through the history of Canada with the First Nations peoples from the Royal Proclamation in the 1700s all the way to today. And it was a very dark history to be hearing for 2.5 hours, but it was also incredibly inspiring to hear his personal story and how he sees a route ahead for Canada as we go forward. But one of the big items that struck me was this really isn't just a Canadian issue. This is a global issue. And hearing the stories of us blowing up 45,000 years of history in Australia, and the challenges that I've seen on energy projects in South America, in the Middle East, in Africa, all over the world, I think this is something that corporations need to be really mindful of as we go forward. If we want to drive our industry forward as quickly as we can, have the impact to mitigate climate change, we need to build that social license and make sure that we include the benefits of renewable energy to a wider audience as we go forward. And one of those key stakeholders, one of the most critical stakeholders as well, is the indigenous people where these projects are being built. Now, I'm not going to delve into all of the details of the 2.5 hour talk, but I would encourage you to go on YouTube or find some of his talk somewhere, because I'd say, to be honest, it was the best talk that I've seen in my entire career. But I do want to focus on the outcomes of that talk that he emphasized. And one of the key outcomes is around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission here in Canada's calls for action. Now, there are 94 calls for action, but I want to focus on one that affects the corporations. And it doesn't just have to affect Canadian corporations here, but it should affect all corporations around the world. And that's call for action M92. And in that call for action, it really asks a few things of corporations. It's asking corporations to adopt the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Rights, on the rights of Indigenous peoples, And then it also it goes on to make sure that when we're doing economic development on indigenous lands, which involves indigenous people, that we make sure that they benefit in the long term from the economically from these projects, whether it's in the projects or from training and everything else. It's making sure that folks who are working on those projects or working in those lands are aware of the history, and making sure that they have that context when those projects are being developed, built, and operated there as well. So from that call to action, what I want to do here today at Clir is kind of commit to a few things. One, I want to commit that we'll adopt that resolution as we go forward as a business. Two, I want to make sure that that we're giving opportunities to indigenous people and peoples as we go forward, where our company and operations are, and we'll look at co-ops, we'll look at analyst positions, we'll look at our board, our executive team as we go forward, to address that. And thirdly, I also want to commit our technology. I know that many of the indigenous peoples have renewable energy projects around the world, which are often on a small scale. They're often on a scale where maybe they don't have access to the best tools on those projects. If that's the case for your project, I want to be able to offer our platform and our expertise to support those projects. So please feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or Clir at LinkedIn as well, or also go to our webpage at www.clir.eco. and learn more about our platform, how it can drive output on your asset and improve the financial returns there. Thank you very much for listening. Have a brilliant week.